There you go.
Huge voluminous meal. I get to eat both of these, and I can straight up eat this cold. I just wanted to add a little bit of context onto my what I eat in a day video because I am 9 days out from my competition, and this week has been quite challenging, and I think it would be challenging for pretty much any bodybuilder coming out of their competition season. So instead of taking a stroll down some kind of eating disorder boulevard, I have been working very, very hard and very, very diligently on rebuilding a healthy relationship with food. You know, a healthy, balanced diet is one that includes foods for health reasons as well as for enjoyment. It's so important to find that balance. And this whole week is basically about figuring out how to do that and about figuring out how to overcome the food guilt. You know, guilt is something that is heavily associated with food in our culture and our society, and it's not right, it's not healthy. Now, it is healthy for everyone to experience just small amounts of guilt. Recognize that guilt and understand it's just food, it's nourishment for my body. You know, there are no good and no bad foods. And as long as I am eating in a healthy and balanced way, all foods are acceptable. There are no off-limit foods. Sure, I went through my what I eat in a day, typical round of meals that I enjoy. These are meals that I also enjoyed regularly during prep because they're so voluminous, they're so filling. I feel like I was able to continue getting in, a good amount of fruits and vegetables, and it worked very, very well for me. And now, as I'm transitioning off of that, it gets more and more challenging, especially when I try different foods in the evening, because that's typically when I'll rotate my meals. And that's typically also when, if I do choose to go out to eat, it's going to be in the evening. So, I worked really hard to try and prepare myself for this past week, coming off of my competition prep diet by really trying to get a lot of the foods that I would find very tempting out of the house, or limit them, or only have foods around that I typically know I have a good amount of self-control with. And it worked to some degree, but the bodybuilding prep journey and diet is so intense that I did learn the hard way. You will find something to binge on. I probably had 2 small binges this past week. I'm not gonna lie. Were they, completely out of control? No, but, eating an entire box of cereal in one sitting, going overboard on some bagels, overeating with a lot of kindness and forgiveness to myself, and a lot of talking to myself, having down-to-earth conversations with myself about these feelings of guilt. You feel like I just worked so hard for the past several months to get competition lean, show off all this muscle that I have worked so hard to achieve over the past however many years, right? And now it's time to put fat back on and get to a healthy body fat percentage. It's time for the scale to go up, which can be particularly challenging for many of us. We're so tied up with the scale, and it's not easy. It's not easy. So what are my strategies, and what am I working on? What am I doing to overcome this guilt and rebuild my healthy relationship with food and work towards not having to overeat every day? Well, for one, I'm trying to redirect this guilt into other goals. Talking down the guilt and then realizing I need to harness this energy elsewhere. Let's not, give myself stress and anxiety and, potentially other mental health problems down the road. Let's think about how, I can take this as a learning experience, how I can improve, and how I can just fuel my body. So the way I've been redirecting this energy is I have been sort of setting a new goal to improve both my physical and mental health during this time, because let's face it, being competition lean is not healthy. We're walking a fine line between being healthy and being fit and eating disorder behaviors. So instead of that, I'm giving myself a checklist, because everything up until this point, everything has been about restrict, restrict, restrict. Now I want this time to be about add, but in a good and healthy and positive way. I've started with a checklist of things to make sure that I include in my day. Making sure I'm including 2 servings of non-starchy veggies. Making sure I'm including a serving of fruit. Making sure I'm including a serving of legumes. Making sure that I am meeting my water goals every single day. Hydration is just as important coming off of competition prep. And last, this is something that I talk about a lot, is giving myself some kind of treat every day. Now, this is going to be very challenging for many, but during this time, it's so important for us to practice, reintroducing enjoyable foods and learning to have them in a balanced way. So how do you do this? Choose foods that you typically have good self-control with, foods that you don't typically binge, foods that still check a little bit of a box for giving you some kind of sense of reward, something that you enjoy, but not something, we don't want to start out by experimenting with hyperpalatable foods yet. So what's one thing for me? I binged out on a whole box of cereal. I binged out on a whole box of Cracklin' Oat Bran, guys, okay? Because that is one of my all-time favorite cereals, has been ever since I was a kid. So I need to practice with a cereal that is not Cracklin' Oat Bran, obviously. I didn't think I would binge on it, but lesson learned. So some other things. I love anything that is made from oats or bran, or there's also Kamut Puffs. So I actually have a bag of Kamut Puffs here. I have a bag of Simple Truth bran flakes. Again, this isn't a super sugary cereal. It's kind of like a health cereal, but I still love cereal so much that it's still a reward for me. Maybe something else a little more in between would be like plain Cheerios. These kinds of things, they're safe for me to experiment with. They're safe for me to, just have a bag in front of me if that were to happen, if I were to put myself in that situation. And I could still binge out on these things because I do enjoy them enough, but it's a good practicing tool. So you just have to find the food that brings you enough enjoyment, but at the same time, it's something that you can practice with and you're less likely to go overboard with. Also, each time you do end up overeating, it's important to immediately forgive yourself. Don't default into this mindset of, okay, I just overdid it, so I'm going to keep overdoing it and I'm going to throw the whole day out the window. No. Pick up right where you left off. Show yourself some grace. Show yourself some forgiveness. Understand that the reason why this is happening is because your body has a biological need to eat additional calories. Your body has a biological need right now to eat additional calories. So your body is just flooding you with all of these hormones that are just setting us up for failure at this time. So some amount of overeating is going to be normal. It's going to be healthy. It's going to be needed. It's going to be absolutely just part of the process. Try not to focus on how good the food tastes and how good you're feeling just eating more food. Try to focus on The fact that these foods are no longer off limits, but we're going to wait a little bit to have more. These treats are not off limits, but we're going to wait to have a little bit more. And promise yourself that you'll be able to continue having treats each and every day. This is not going to be a perfect cycle. It's going to take practice. But every time you are able to stop, congratulate yourself and tell yourself, I did a good job. I did a good job coming to a stopping point and not overdoing it, not overeating to the point where I gave myself a stomach ache or made myself nauseous or gave myself an upset stomach, any of those things. Even if you do overeat, still have this conversation with yourself and be like, and tell yourself, I'm just going to continue getting better and better each and every day. For me, what's been happening is I start out the day doing great, on plan, logging my macros, following my typical rotation of meals. And then at some point in the day, something happens. I need to figure out something else to eat. I don't have enough food options, or maybe I have too many food options. And that's when you may start to lose control. Another goal that you can set, and I think you should set if you're a bodybuilder coming out of prep, is performance goals. Let's put aside the physique goals for a little while and start to focus on, all right, how can I improve my performance in the gym? Voila. This is how you connect your future goals and your future, positive relationship with bodybuilding to the here and now in the present when things are tough, when it's going to be tough to learn to have some self-control around the foods that you love and learn to not let these foods be in control of you. So setting a goal that's a performance-related goal, something like I'd like to increase my such and such lift, maybe lift A, B, and C, choose a few that you really enjoy or that you really historically have gone up, have been able to see progressive overload and epic gains on, and set the goal for over the next 6 months to increase that by 10 to 20%. If you're a female, I'd say more like 10%. If you're a male, I'd say more like 20%, depending on how much you lift. But looking at your numbers, figure out exactly how much you want that to be and set a goal. And then tying your new goal of improving your mental and your physical health, it's easy to figure out how these two are going to be intertwined and dependent on each other. It gives you more of a reason. If you continue to struggle and continue to not see improvement with as far as being able to eat within your calories, start thinking of something else that you can do to distract yourself from food. This can be going for a walk. It can be, ladies, painting your nails. It can be getting out of the house. It can be choosing that time to go out and do an important errand, ideally not grocery shopping. It can be calling a friend, calling a family member. For me, something I find all-consuming is giving Amazon reviews. There's nothing that's going to distract me and get me down a rabbit hole more than Amazon reviews. Pouring yourself a serving and removing yourself from the environment and eating away from the opportunity to get seconds, thirds, fourths. Sometimes this can be a huge game changer, and it can start to repair things mentally and set new habits. Guys, it takes about 2 months to set new habits. So I'm talking about struggling over the past week. It's probably going to take me 2 months to rebuild these healthy habits and the self-control that I had developed before my prep, the self-control that I had with food, and the wonderful relationship I had with food. I was talking with Giacomo earlier today, and he gave me this great metaphor of treating your relationship with bodybuilding and treating your relationship with food like an actual relationship with a human being, like treating it like a marriage. And I know what he meant by that is putting time and effort into these relationships each and every day. This is not something that you want to sweep under the rug. This is not something that you want to continue getting stuck in a cycle of guilt, because when you feel bad about eating, our instinct is to restrict more. When we restrict too much, we will inevitably come to a point where we will binge. And then the cycle starts over of binge, guilt, restrict. Binge, guilt, restrict. Don't get stuck in this cycle. Work on it day by day. Give yourself some grace. And also remember that this is a time of celebration. You just finished a huge, huge accomplishment, stepping on stage. You know how many people do that? Probably less than 1% of human beings. It's not an easy sport, or everyone would do it. Never forget that. Remember that it's okay to celebrate with food. And just remember, guys, things don't always go according to plan. Practicing self-compassion is the best way to break the guilt cycle. Thanks so much, everybody. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to our channel. Let me know your experiences of coming off of bodybuilding prep. If this is something that you've struggled with, and if there's something that you did that you'd like to share that really, really was a game changer for helping you overcome the struggles, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to get a conversation going. And if you're interested in bodybuilding and interested in one-on-one coaching, definitely check us out, veganproteins.com/personal-training. Take care, guys, and I'll talk to you soon.